Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a chilly morning in Florida. Winter is on its way. And right here, I want to share something with you. I'd like to share how to take care of your car. There's two important things that you need to always check on your car. I don't think very many people does that, but you need to check your engine oil, and your engine coolant. Those are the two most important things you should always check on your car. And if you don't, there is a chance that you will blow up the motor. I have three vehicles in my shop right now. Two of them have blown head gasket. They still run, but they're overheating this fire and it will not go away. I have one that's low on oil and caused damage to the engine. So I want to do a little demo on this one back here behind me and explain some things what's going on here. So it's very important for you to learn how to check your oil and how to check your coolant level. You must have enough coolant and enough oil in the engine to keep it going. If you don't, you'll be buying an engine or you'll be buying a new car. I already went through this vehicle behind me and found out what's going on. I spent a few hours on it. It got towed in, not running, no start. First thing I found was the battery is completely dead. It took me a whole day and some of the other day, the next day, to recharge the battery. Okay, so after that, I try starting the car, crank it. It will crank, but it will not start. So I spoke to the customer. I usually like to talk to the customer for at least half an hour, trying to find out what's going on with the car. What's going on, what happened, how it happened, when it happened, that kind of stuff. More of a little investigation. So I spoke to the customer. He drove the car home, parked it, next day it wouldn't start anymore. Fair enough. He's checked and changed a few things on his own. He did a tune-up, he changed ignition coil, spark plug, wire, coolant sensors. There's a new idle air control valve. Changed a few things, still can't get it running. So he got it towed to the shop. And I put the scanner on it first thing because why would I think the engine is no good? No reason at all. Because you drove it home and next day it wouldn't start. That could be an electrical issue or something failed. So I put the scanner, I got codes. I checked the codes out, do diagnostic. Didn't find nothing there really. But what I want to do is I want to reenact this diagnostic procedure and show you what I did, what I found, what's going on here. Sometimes you go to AutoZone and they do a scan and you get some codes and you think that code's gonna fix your car. Sometimes they'll tell you buy this part, put it in there, and you'll fix the car. That's a 50% chance only. It don't always work that way. Sometimes you get codes, you pull codes with the scanner, and it's all false. Doesn't do a damn thing for you. So today I am going to do a little demo on this car and show you what I did and what I found. Alright, so let's do this. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing, I'll turn the key on. And we're gonna do a computer diagnostic here. I'm gonna go back in the computer, look up history, because I've done this before. More likely I'm not gonna find any codes here because I believe I cleared it all out. I might have to crank it and see if it'll set a code again. diagnostic, initializing. Yeah, I might have to crank this engine over several times to get it to set the code, and we'll see what code is in there. Come on! Slow as it can be. There you go. I'm gonna go ahead and crank this first. It's trying to start, but it don't want to start. So there. Okay. Now that I did that, let's see if we'll find some codes in here. I'm gonna do, I don't want to scan the whole entire system. I'm just gonna go to the engine, PCM, computer, and I'm gonna go read codes, key on, engine off. People must be prepped for self-test instruction. Do not activate switches during test. Blah 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 blah. I'll just go okay. It usually takes a little bit to get there. Okay, so we have some codes. Power interruption and KPWR. Keep alive memory power. Check all of the system is not complete since that 1000. So it's not giving me the code that I'm looking for. These codes here, P1000 doesn't really mean anything. You'll always find that code on a Ford. Power interruption, that one don't mean much either. But there was a code in here yesterday. I guess if I crank it long enough, several times, I might see that code. Let me try it again. Let's try this again, see if it's set anymore. It had an ignition switch code in there. Let's see what happens here. Anyway, it had an ignition switch code in there. I've checked the ignition switch. Didn't really find anything. But it says on my diagnostic chart that if, with the code that it said if turn the ignition on and then turn the radio on. If the radio works, go ahead and change the ignition switch. Now you have two parts of the ignition switch here, one electrical part and one mechanical part, which is the key tumbler. This is the electrical part. It's a cheap part, so I went ahead and changed it anyhow. I didn't want to spend a whole day on the electrical diagnostic trying to find problems. Then I could just put a cheap part like this when they already said to do that anyhow. This didn't fix it. So that's when I start checking everything else. So I'm gonna continue moving to the next step. I went under the hood. Customer said that they know it's not fuel because they checked that. It's not fuel related, that it's electrical or something else, which I kind of believe too. So what I'm gonna do now, we're gonna go under the hood and do some work there. Let's turn the computer off for now. Plug that. Okay, so the first thing I want to check under the hood I am gonna spray some fuel in the intake manifold, and if this car is not getting fuel, it should start when I spray some. I'm gonna spray some starter fluid in there, and it should start or make an attempt to start. That'll let me know if it's fuel related issue. So let's do that and see what happens. Okay, I will take the air filter snorkel hose off. Let me show you what I'm doing here. So now I'm going to open the throttle body gently, and I'm going to stick the screwdriver in there gently to keep it open. I think I'm going to put the head in there. There. Perfect. So there. That's what I did. Open the butterfly. So now I have a big hole in there. I'm going to go ahead and spray some starter fluid right down in that hole. I'm going to give it a good squirt. Alright. And now I'm going to take the screwdriver out and close that back up. I'm also going to put the hose back on because it has what we call a mass airflow sensor. And if you can see that right there, it's a mass airflow sensor. So you need to put the hose back on. If this car is going to start, you need to put it all back together. And now we're gonna go ahead and try to start and see if it'll fire up. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so that did not even try to start. So I know it's not fuel related. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check for spark. See if we got spark. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install a spark tester. One of these gadgets here. And if it has spark, it will light up in here. It'll be flashing in here somewhere in the glass. So we're going to pull a spark plug wire. Let's pull this one right here. Spark plug wire. Install that in the ignition coil right there like that. And the other end, connect it right there. Okay. You can see that. Now we're gonna crank it to start again, and if we have spark, that's what you really need to fire up the motor anyhow. So if we have spark, we have to continue our journey here trying to find this problem where it's at. I'm going to zoom in on this and hopefully you'll see the spark. Let's see right there. Let's try cranking this again. I'm going to try to zoom in as much as possible because I can't see. If you're able to see when I turn the key, hopefully you can see this. It should light up there. I can see it. Here to this window. Okay, so Okay, so I just saw the spark. I'm not sure if you did or not. Hopefully you did, but it has spark. So we don't have a fuel problem and we don't have spark problem. So since they did, you know, there's another thing I could check here is to see how strong the spark really is. Why don't I go ahead and demonstrate that for you? This is another gadget right here. This helps to check the length of the spark. It usually jumps across from here to the other side right there. It's adjustable. I can change how far out I want to go by doing that to make a bigger spark. Now you can see it from there all the way to there. I don't think the spark is going to go that far. I'm going to go back into a little bit closer where I know it's strong enough. It should be strong enough. If it's right there and you get a nice bluish color spark and it's jumping across, then that's a pretty healthy spark. Why don't I check that? Let's do that. And connect the other end right there. Let's check that. Once again, hope you'll be able to see this. I'm gonna try my best here to try to get you to see that. I'm zooming in as much as possible. Right there. Good. Let's try this again. I don't know if you saw it, but I think that's a pretty good healthy spark. So we're gonna move on to the next step. What I want to do next, since this guy ran the vehicle, parked it at home, and then next day wouldn't start, you would think that it's some kind of electrical problem, but I didn't find anything there. And we have spark, and we have fuel, and I know we don't have a fuel problem because I sprayed starter fluid in there and it should fire right up or make an attempt to start, and that didn't work. So there's something else going on here. What I want to do next is he changed ignition wires. Where's that wire at? There we go. It fell somewhere. Oh, there you are. He changed ignition wires, spark plug, ignition coil, coolant sensor, idle air control valve, okay, change idle air control valve, which is this right here. I don't know if you saw that. So we have new ignition wire, spark plug wires. There's a new ignition coil right under there. We have new idle air control valve, and I see there's some new sensors under there. You can see it's nice and shiny. Coolant sensors. What I want to do next, I'm gonna check his oil level. Well, I already checked his oil level and it was low. And pull the dipstick. This is your engine oil. This oil was it was low. It was very low. Right now it's at full. He's got a lot of oil in there. At the second hole at the top, there's oil right there. So it's full. When I checked it first, it was all the way down at the bottom, almost at the tip right there, which is very low. So he was running this car on very low oil, and the first thing I did was to pour some oil back in there. If I'm going to try to revive this motor or find what's wrong with it here, I want to make sure I have enough oil in the engine so you can have some lubrication, just in case I get this thing to fire up. So the next thing we're going to do here, which I already did, is pull spark plug. I'm going to pull one of the spark plug, because if you've been cranking this thing for a while and it's getting fuel, it will foul out the spark plug and you probably won't get no spark to start the engine. So what I would normally do is, if I found that's going on, I would dry the spark plugs out. I will blow shop air, compressed air in the cylinder and dry the fuel out from in there, put the spark plug back in there and fire it up and see if that helps anything. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and pull spark plugs. I'm picking the easiest spark plug to pull. Smart move. Get rid of these tools. There. I'm gonna go down in here. This is the easiest one out of all of them. Got one out. Now we're gonna take that spark plug out from that hole. I've already done this, but I'm just doing a little video on it, so for somebody to hopefully learn something. There, it's in now. It's a tough spark plug on this vehicle to replace. Hard to reach. Alright, we're gonna turn this out with my hand. Come on. Alright, so here's a spark plug. Its new spark plug has been replaced. Right now, the tip right here is usually full of fuel, which I can see. It's wet. If I smell it, you can smell the fuel on it. Yeah, I don't know if I can get some on my finger. A little residue, not much, but it's wet. If you keep cranking, you'll get soaked. So I know for sure that it's getting fuel. So what I did earlier yesterday is I pull all the spark plugs out and I blow shop air into the cylinder to dry it out, dry out the fuel, put all the spark plug back in and try to start it again. And it still did not start, so my next step was to pull one spark plug back out, and I wanted to check compression to see what the compression is like. So I've done that, and all the compression, all the cylinders was low. They weren't high enough to make a combustion to fire up the engine. So what I want to do a demonstration on compression check. I'm only going to do it on one cylinder because it's very hard to pull these spark plugs on this engine. So I picked the easiest one to do just for a demo. Compression tester. That's what it looks like. It's a hose and a gauge that screws into the spark plug hole. It's got threads at the end for two different sizes there. So he's got two different sizes. It's a step up and down. Alright, let's try that. Come on now. Come on. We can do this. There. Got it in. Nice and tight. Connect the gauge. Okay. I guess the other thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead right there. And I'm going to take the hose back off from the throttle body. Put it to the side and get the screwdriver. Put it back and open up the butterfly in the throttle body. You want a lot of air to go in there when you're doing this test, so you get a true test. So now we have the compression tester here. Let's see if you can see that. Let's set it up where you can see it. Can't really see that. I'm gonna zoom in on it. Let's zoom in on the gauge right there. Okay, right there. So we have the gauge in. I'm gonna look at the needle right here. Is gonna go up, and we're gonna check to see how far it goes. I'm looking for at least 100 psi. In order for this thing to have good compression, it needs to be at least 100 psi. And all I found yesterday across the board, all of the cylinders, was 60 psi. Let's try that again. Here we go. It's trying to start. All we got here on this cylinder today is 40 psi. How about that? I want to try it again. Let's see where it goes. What we have now? Yeah, today it's only making 40 psi. And the reason for that is yesterday I poured oil down the cylinder and blow it around the side so it can get on the rings, the piston rings, just in case if the oil was drained out, because this vehicle was parked for a few months after this problem happened. And by sitting down, gravity pulls the oil down into the oil pan, and it can have, the oil could be dried out from around the rings. So I normally pour oil in there and oil it back up, and it usually helps to build compression back up. I think with all the cranking I've been doing and the gas that's going down in there, kind of wash the oil away from the rings again, and that's why we're having lower compression. So I'm thinking that right now, because you have low compression, this vehicle never start. Right now, maybe all of the cylinders probably reading about 40 psi. It should be at least 100 psi right up here in order to make a combustion, to make it start. This engine is not gonna start, and I don't have enough compression. So with the check engine light and all the other crap that you go through, doesn't mean anything. It's all fake. This engine don't have enough compression, so this engine will never run. And it has about the same amount of low compression all the way on all the cylinders. That kind of tell me it's possible that because it had not much oil in the engine, it was probably low enough for poor lubrication, was what I would say. Most of these engines have what you call like a splash oil kind of thing in there. If you have low oil, you're not gonna make any splash, and you need the splash to go up behind the piston to lubricate the rings and the piston walls. cylinder walls to keep the engine lubricated and to keep that compression going. If it was low enough, which I think, not all the time you'll see the same low compression on all the cylinders, but we're seeing that on this engine, and that's one possibility. And the other possibility is, since you don't have enough oil in the engine, you can also lose oil pressure. And if you lose oil pressure, and this is a chain driven engine and it has a hydraulic tensioner that's operated by oil pressure, and you don't have enough oil, that tensioner can get loose, the chain can get loose, and it could jump the chain one tooth at the crankshaft, not at the cam, at the crank, and cause all the cylinder to be low. If it was to jump at the camshaft, I don't think you'll have compression, low compression on all cylinders. You'll only have it on one side, wherever that cam is out of alignment. And just one tooth, you can have, you'll have the valve not closing completely, and you'll leak compression through that valve and cause low compression. Or it's leaking compression by the rings because it's starved for oil, and you end up being low, poor lubrication. And the rings is probably overheated and stuck in the piston, and it's not sealing anymore, and that can cause the issue too. So my conclusion here is, you need to either replace the engine, rebuild the engine, or you can tear down the whole front of the engine and check the timing chain, see if it's in alignment. If it's in alignment, then you need to either rebuild the engine or replace the engine, because this engine will never start again until you have at least 100 psi on the gauge of compression. Compression is too low. So yes, you must have enough oil in your engine at all time and enough coolant in your radiator. And I believe the coolant in this radiator is also low. Let's take a look, see what we got. So let's take a look down in the radiator. I'm already seeing that it's low in fluid. How low is it low? I don't know, but I can see deep down in the radiator, and it's dry. So you're low in fluid too. Guys, once again, make sure your engine has enough oil and water, or coolant and engine oil. You have those two things in there, more than likely your car is going to last for a long time. You don't have that in there, you're going to blow up the engine. That's the way I would like to put it. Blow up the engine. So let's not do that. Learn how to check your fluids if you want your vehicle to last. Learn how to do those two things. So guys, there you have it. This vehicle needs an engine, or repair the engine, and it will run again. Check engine light codes is not always going to fix your car. Sometimes it will be false. In this situation here, it's false. This thing needs an engine. So go ahead and tell your cousin. Tell your cousin. Hope you learned something here today. You will see me in my next video. We'll try to learn something new every time, or we'll go out and have some fun. Bust a lime. We will bust a lime. So go ahead, share, subscribe, tell your cousin. Until next time, you will see me in another video. Thank you for watching.